Rick, the ridge runner up ahead. He's flying by me. Stayed in the tri-knob shelter last night. Rick kind of nudged me to go ahead and stay in the shelter, and it was nice. There was a bunch of people in there. Hey, good morning.
Morning.
How you doing? Bunch of people in there, good community group. The tri-knob shelter had a top on the front of it, which was pretty cool. And it rained pretty good at night, but it was nice to stay dry and all that. And it was a good night overall. Rain this morning, but it kind of let up a bit. I think it's going to continue to rain today. This is kind of what the Smokies have looked like for me since I've been here. As you can see, lots of moss, lots of fir trees everywhere. There's no stealth sites here because it's not allowed to stealth camp. There's really no place to do it that I've seen in my day plus of hiking through here. I mean, you could go down and see if you could find something there, but it'd be quite difficult. So that's a rule they have, and everybody needs a permit when you come in here. I think the thing that irks through hikers a little bit is just negotiating my way down here. Thing that irks through hikers a little bit is if you get to a crowded shelter and you get in, and then a section hiker comes and he's got a reservation at that shelter, he can bump you and you're out and he's in. So that creates some, I don't want to say friction, but I think that's why a lot of people are kind of upset with the rules. But you know, it's the rules, you got to abide by them. But I was happy last night that I stayed in the shelter, even though I don't normally like staying in the shelters. I'd much rather tent. But it was nice. And I think I said there was a good mix of through hikers and section hikers and all that. It was like a good little community in there. And I was on the lower level of the shelter, so it was about 3 feet high, and I was underneath the beam, so it was a little tight, but I slept well. Didn't get up until 6:40 and thought I would be zipping out of camp because I didn't have to take down a wet tent, but I didn't get going till about 8:35. But I got about 15.1 to do today to get the Newfound Gap, and that's where I'm going to hop off to go into Gatlinburg. Gatlinburg's about 15 miles away, but I'll either hitch or call a shuttle. And as you can see, the Smokies are getting smoky. Before I pulled my camera out, you could see a lot. This wasn't so fleeting, so I wanted to capture this one as well. Had to catch this view before it disappears. Charlie's Bunyan, which is a big viewpoint, is a half-mile away. Although it's kind of gooey out, I'm going to check it out as the goo blows around. Going back in the woods this way. There's a hillside next to me. I've arrived at Charlie's Bunyan, and I got a view. And that is a big ass drop down there. I guess this rock formation here is Charlie's Bunyan. I'm gonna go up there a little bit and get a look. It's 5,500 feet here, and it's nice to see that. Well, I think the goo's coming over here, but at least we got a beautiful view, and the sun is starting to poke out down there. Okay, I foolishly climbed up a little bit, but I'm definitely not going out there. And there's the rest of the view that I showed you just a couple minutes ago. It's already kind of getting socked in a bit. Sure, maybe the view will change. really didn't do a lot of video on Saturday and Sunday when I was entering and then in the Smokies because it was raining quite a bit and my phone was acting up a bit. So anyway, I started Saturday morning at the Standing Bear Farm Hostel. It was okay. I got in there, had a beer and a burger, I got to recharge, and I had fall number 6. Just slid, going downhill when it was all wet from all the rain, and feet went out from underneath me, and the pack bore the brunt of the fall, so that was okay. And I finally got down, went underneath I-40, and then I began a pretty good climb that lasted for a number of miles, about 3,000 foot elevation. It was interesting because I came across a guy who was doing a section, and he came out of nowhere. He was hiking in sandals as well. But anyway, we did the 3,000 climb together. I led and he followed. I think I explained that in the Smokies you're required to stay at a shelter. You can't stealth camp. And there's really no stealth camping because most of the trail seems to follow a ridgeline, and then the trail falls off or rises, and there's really no flat places, and there's all kinds of deadfall and all that. But I had heard that there'd be a ridge runner. Ridge runner is a guy that's brought on by the ATC, normally a successful thru hiker that's familiar with the AT, and he or she is out there primarily to make sure people are following the 7 leave no trace principles. So I showed up at the shelter after doing my 17 miles or whatever it was to get there, and I guess it was 18.1, and it was pretty crappy. And I asked Rick, the ridge runner, I said, hey, can I tent? And he says, you can tent, but we got room inside the shelter. It was a double-decker shelter, and he said, we'll make room for you. So I said, okay. I normally don't like to stay in shelters. Damn glad I did that night because it really rained. And the other thing about the shelters is I'm not exactly sure how it works because you got a mix of gender in there, and we were all drenched, and you have to get out of the wet clothes. And I know a lot of people do that inside the sleeping bag, but I didn't want to put my wet shorts in my wet underwear and wet shirt inside my down sleeping bag and get that wet. So anyway, I kind of nudged through that even though there was a lady next door to me. And sure enough, Sunday morning, I ended up putting my underwear on backwards. I said, the hell with it, I'm keeping them that way. So then Sunday I left, and like I think I mentioned in the video, I figured I'd get out expeditiously. It didn't happen for whatever reason, but it rained on and off throughout Sunday, and I got some views on the camera. I went out to Charlie's Bunyan and caught some views, and then I decided to have some lunch, so I pulled out my stove and made my last top ramen and Spam, and then the rain came on again. So I was in and out of the rain jacket multiple times. I think I mentioned that Rick the ridge runner, made sure everybody was aware that there was a shelter that was closed due to bear activity. They've had a bear that has been hounding people at that particular shelter, and now they're trying to capture him or her so they can relocate the bear because the bear has just gotten too accommodating to people and food. So that's kind of what we're dealing with there, but it was no issue for me because I was going down a Newfound Gap, and I was getting out of Smokies after 2 days in to come into Gatlinburg, which I've been in since last night, and did a 0. Gatlinburg's an interesting place. It's kind of like a mini Vegas. When I got down to Newfound Gap on Sunday, it was pouring. I was wet. I was soaked. And I was just kind of looking around. I was getting ready to go out on not the interstate, but I guess the Tennessee Route 441, I think it was. And I was going to try my hand at hitchhiking, which I heard is pretty good. But there was a truck there, and the lady rolled down the window on the passenger side and said, "You need a lift?" And I said, "Sure." And I threw my pack in the back of the pickup truck and my poles and jumped in the back. And said, hey, I'm really soaking wet. You want me to put my rain jacket down? And they said, don't worry about it. You know, our kids are hikers, so they were kind of familiar with it. And they drove me right into Gatlinburg.